Hey everybody, Brett Tadlock, TNArtist here. Welcome to this lesson. So I've got a 8x10 watercolor paper canvas starting off here, just using some of the basic inks and that kind of stuff. So what I'm going to do here first is I know that the shape that I want to use in the background is going to be oval-ish. So I'm going to start with an oval and then just kind of freehand draw around some different shapes to kind of make it a little more organic. And then once I've got that there, what I want to do next is wet the layer and then draw in a few extra spots here and there as well, and then go back and wet it again so I can just kind of play around with those and have those wet. And then what I'm going to do is start laying in different colors, kind of blues and purples and mauves, magentas, and all that kind of stuff, just to kind of let it lay in. I'm going to pause diffusion, lay in the colors, also changing to the ink palette. So then I'm just laying in those and let them blend with each other, and then from there just continuing to build it and build it. So that's all I'm doing for this step, so just kind of pay attention and you can see what all I'm doing here. So now that I've got that pretty much where I want it to be, the next step that I want to do is I'm going to add a few light colors here. Kind of a cool trick that you can do is select the color of the canvas. Like for my paper, it's an off-white. It's not completely white. If you select that and then put it in there, it kind of gives the impression of some blooms that weren't quite as thick. And like if you're putting salt down or something. But anyway, once I've got that there, I'm going to select my pencil tool and start sketching in the goldfish and just get a kind of a general idea of what I want the body to look like and so forth. So just really kind of starting with an oval and then building on top of that for it. I'll get rid of the background here in a second so I can see this a little better in just a moment. But the main thing I'm going to do is sketch this out. Then I'm going to create a new layer on top of it and ink it. And then that inking layer will then get laid underneath, and I'll paint orange underneath and then set the transparency to be preserved transparency to kind of make a mask that I can paint inside of. And the ink drawing and the pencil drawing will really go away later. I won't keep them, but they're just there to be guide maps to kind of build up and see what I want to do. But the nice thing about sketching and digitally or in Rebelle is that I can just kind of real loosely sketch it, get kind of where I'm going, add a new layer, and then start building a more precise design on top of that. So that's what this step is right here, is just building up the design of the fish, creating a new layer, taking my pen tool with no water or very, very little water, and then sketching it out to play around with. I also do kind of quickly play around with the smoothing feature that it has, but I don't overly use that, so I just kind of went back to just doing what I was doing. So that's what this part is. It's just kind of inking it in, giving myself the roadmap that I'm going to go with, and then from there painting an orange layer underneath to start building up my colors. So just sit back and enjoy this one. So now that I've got the orange laid in there, I'm going to create a new layer between, well, actually I'm going to stay on this layer because I've got it set up almost like a masking tool, so that orange underneath, I'm going to take the marker tool and start using that to lay out some of my shadows and some of my highlights. So that's what I'm doing right here, is trying to start putting that together. I like using the marker tool for this because the marker tool acts very much in a way that you can just really smooth it out and play around with it. So if you wanted to do some really nice inking work, you can really do it with this tool and get some really nice blends and everything else. But I like it to kind of lay in and start that process, and then just kind of slowly build up everything that I'm doing and getting the shapes and the volume kind of laid out. And then from there I can go in and start really refining everything that I'm doing. So that's what I'm doing right here. So we'll just kind of keep building this up and kind of going through it. So as I'm getting all that kind of laid out and an idea of where I want, again, this is very much an underpainting at this point, so not worried about it being the final piece. But then one of the next things I want to do is start laying in kind of the design for the scales. So what I'm going to do here is use the fill tool and switch to pattern, and then I'm going to lay out the pattern of these scales like this. And once I've got them kind of in the direction I want and everything else, then I'll accept the fill. And this is on a new layer, by the way. I'm going to change it to multiply so that it kind of is more natural looking. Then I select the fish layer and invert the selection and delete everything. So all I have now is the scales on top of the fish layer. I'm going to switch back to my marker, put it on 5, which is eraser, and then just get rid of all the ones that I don't want, you know, that don't make sense, like going over the fins and everything else in the head and all that. So I get rid of all those and erase them. Probably should have spent a little bit more time paying attention to this right here, because I did have to go back and kind of fiddle with it here and there where I missed some and so forth. But not a huge deal, just one of those things to be aware of if you do this. But I love the fill tool here, being able to do this. You can do this with a stencil just as easily if you don't have 7. Just make a stencil of some scales, and then from there, all you got to do is just lay out the stencil the direction that you want, color in the area that you want, and then put it on multiply as well. So now that I've got that there, I'm going to go in, darken these a little bit with the hue saturation, change the lightness, change the color a little bit. Because it's on multiply, it's just going to make it kind of sit down into the fish a little bit better. And now that I've got that there, I'll start building up the lights and the darks of the scales. So as you can see, I've built up a lot of the shadows and the highlights. So from here, it's just a matter of refining, adding the different highlights that I want, playing around with some of the pencils and pastels, smoothing it back with a marker, pushing it a little bit further, kind of getting the look that I want of it kind of standing out against that background, which could be kind of a space background or just a watercolor background, or it's really kind of open for interpretation. But again, just kind of refining, removing some of the black ink, and then just adding highlights and so forth. And these all will end up going on a layer above everything else, and just kind of keep playing around with it and adding the highlights and the shadows and so forth. And it's just a lot of back and forth work. So not really a lot to go into while I'm doing it, but if you have questions, just let me know and I'll be happy to answer them. So like I said, been a lot of building up layers, and by layers I don't mean actual layers. I mean just playing back and forth with the colors, smoothing them, roughing them up, adding highlights, pushing them back, going back and forth on this, and kind of getting the overall feel that I want. And that's one of those areas where, you know what, just play while you're doing it, have fun with it, play around with it, and see what the look that you can get that you like. Now on this monitor that I'm recording over from the screen capture, it's not quite as vivid as it is on my other monitor, so this will print a little bit darker than it is here and a lot more rich and saturated, which is what I want, and will come out that way. So on my monitor, at least, this part was a little desaturated, but on my other ones that I use for verifying how it's going to look to print, it was really nicely saturated and came out really good. But yeah, it's been kind of a fun little painting to do. Just something I've been wanting to do, to kind of play around with that fill tool and doing those scales, and then playing around with just the highlights and having some fun here and there. One of the last things I'm going to do as I kind of go in and put this rim lighting around it is I'll take one of my stencils. It's my star stencil, and I'm going to really scale it way up and then paint some of the white in on it to get kind of a cool look, I think anyway, where it kind of gets that ambiguous. Like I said, it could be space, it could be, you know, just watercolor stuff or whatever, but it gives it a really interesting look to me into it. I tried it at first with using the water tool splatter, didn't like it at all. So then I decided, you know what, I'm just going to switch to the stencil and do it that way. I just couldn't get the control that I wanted or the look that I wanted using the watercolor splatter tools, brushes. So that's what I'm doing right here, is just kind of playing around with those and being like, no, I don't really like it, gonna undo it, and then just try it again with the stencil. So if you have my stencil pack, you've got that stencil. So, but you could use any of them. You could use the pebbles, you could use the stars, the snow, whichever you want to use. I just blew it up a lot and then painted it out. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this one. Just wanted to kind of have it in there so that way you could look over the shoulder and kind of see how everything's done. Like I said, if you got questions about it, just let me know. But it's been a fun one to do and just kind of a relaxing painting. So hope you have a great rest of the day and a good week coming up. And just let me know if you need anything at all. Thanks for being around. See you on the next one.